Welcome to Coffee Confessions. Today's topic is all about traveling.
You can have a 70 dirham glass of wine here in Dubai, or you can have like a €1/2 glass of wine in Budapest.
So I have visited only 46 countries. For me, this is not much because I want to visit every single country in the world. That is my personal bucket list.
Yeah, one thing is that I surely want to go to Pakistan. I have a list of places that I want to see.
Why did you always want to do a solo travel?
I really enjoy my company and I believe.
That's nice. I like that. Say that again.
I enjoy my company.
Very good. More people should do that.
Yes, and more people should stop feeling selfish about it. That, okay, I'm being selfish if I want to do things for myself. No, that's not wrong. If you're happy, everyone else around you, you could make them happy. So it's like that. So for me, and I always wanted to do, but coming from an typical Indian background, my parents freaked out at the thought of me going alone. So that never happened. Then marriage happened. And then a child happened and I became a parent myself. So I was like, okay, now I'm a parent. I have the rights to my own life. So I want to do it. So I went alone on a Spain trip, south of Spain. Generally, food trips for Spain is the north. But I wanted to do the Andalusian region because the paella, that's the home of the paella. So I really wanted to do and understand it. And there are a lot of things I got to know about myself. Yes, there are cons, but I believe the pros outweigh the cons. That's and it doesn't matter whether you're a woman or a man.
She traveled looking for food. You traveled looking for wildlife. Yes. So that's your passion. Now, when you're doing these tours, they're very different than other trips, right?
Kind of.
Yeah. So what are the precautions that you take, and when someone is coming on for the first time to join a wildlife trip with you, what are the things that you tell them to watch out for?
See, most of the people we cater us into photography.
Photographers.
So, yes.
Okay.
The facilities you get in a reserve, in a forest, is you cannot compare everything with what you get in a city.
Correct.
So that's one thing which you need to keep in mind.
That you're outside the city comfort.
Yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's a different kingdom and it's a different feel. The moment you try to open up yourself to nature, it's altogether magical.
How has your experience been? Because, there's a lot of stories about women traveling alone and, some of them are negative.
Yes.
So from your experience, have you had a lot of issues or has it been smooth?
It was smooth for me, thank God. Okay, because especially when it comes to Africa, I think the toughest time for me to go out of my home back in Kerala after 6 o'clock because I will not get that permission. No matter what, even if I'm going to be 60, I don't think my father is going to give me the permission for that.
Oh, really?
But when it comes to Africa, though people say it's scary, and we live inside the African savannas, so going alone, the first trip, it was a bit tense for me, even though I have been to this place already. But then, it's only the day one. Then, you understand, you don't have to wait for somebody. You don't have to ask, you like to have this or this. I'm a vegetarian, so food is always sometimes get into trouble. And especially in the field, if you are alone, you can place your vehicle according to you, not for the person who is sitting next, right? Because even in a vehicle, in a safari vehicle, you will have 3 to 4 rows. So one position will be good for one person, not for the other person. This is a bit of selfish. So if you're traveling by yourself, that is a plus point. Yeah. But then, even if it's a group, every angle will have its own beauty.
Top 3 tips for traveling from your side, personal?
Traveling solo or?
And both. I mean, let's do both.
Solo, it's better. You really need to do a proper research on where you are going, where you are staying, and your activities. You need to have a proper list. It's
your itinerary.
Yes. And see, going out of itinerary, it's always fun, but unless you feel safe, don't. It's about your gut feel. And if it is about group, if you're traveling with a particular team or anything, again, research on them, how their activities are, research the location and your activities, your preferences, food, accommodation, every stuff.
Everything.
Yeah, a ground search.
Thank you so much, Nisha.
My pleasure, dear.
And Navita, your top tips for traveling?
Again, adding to what Nisha said, that's obviously important to your research work at home. For one thing, I was just thinking about it while you were talking to Nisha. Don't try and post every single move on social media, especially when you're out.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Wait till you come back and then you can do that. Because that's not safe, one, because everyone's get to know it's like social media is open. Having said that, do inform one of your relatives or anyone back home where you are.
You were mentioning something about budgeting, because that was one of the things I asked you offline. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so everyone has a different approach to budgeting. Okay, for some people, they want to stay in the Ritz-Carlton. For some people, they want to go camping. And some people want to find a sweet spot somewhere in the middle, like an Airbnb. I mean, the good thing about traveling today is we have all of these third-party options, right? So Airbnb is a great option. I've used them a lot. Some people use couchsurfing. That's a great thing as well. It's all about how you assess your risk, your safety, your own comfort, how much you want to spend every day. So as much as it's nice to say we want to do spontaneous travel, there's still a little bit of preparation you need to do. Because some places are just not safe for a thing like Airbnb. Some places are just very, very, very expensive if you try to get a regular hotel. A good budget can get you to a lot of places and a lot of countries. And like that example I keep giving, like in 2016, I've been to around 22 different countries, spent a lot of time, and I spent less money than a lot of friends I have in Dubai who enjoy nightlife and the Friday and Saturday brunches.
So Komal, you had recently traveled alone. I mean, in a group setting, but alone. So tell us about that experience and about what your passions are for traveling.
I won a radio trip. So with one of the leading radios out here, and I traveled with 55 strangers. So that was a great experience. The best part about that was that I've been to Cape Town earlier. So I happened to go to Cape Town again. And this way I was like a kind of guide for them as well, because I would tell them the insights. But yeah, like going to a new place with completely different people and then going to the same place with your family it's a completely different experience, because you have different perspective. You get to talk to other people who have been on a different journey, get their experiences, and have a completely different perspective about the same place, from others' eyes. So that's something which was really, really nice.
Is it true that you have to be more precautious when you're a woman traveling alone?
Yes, depends also where you travel. And like if you're traveling, like I traveled with a group of 55 strangers, but in the end of the day, I did keep my family back informed that, this is the itinerary and this is what we're going to do. And wherever I had Wi-Fi, I would just send them pictures generically, and I would just keep them informed as well. But it's always good to do a research as well when you travel to places. It absolutely depends. Your own safety is in your own hands kind of thing, but you have to be like precautious yourself as well. And again, it depends what country or the place you are visiting. You have to do a little research about that.
So what are your top tips for traveling as a woman?
Always keep one person informed for sure. And just make sure you're aware about your surroundings.
Ryan, now as a guy, do you find it easier to plan traveling alone, opposed to, a lot of women have a lot of security, safety concerns, but I'm sure you also take certain precautions.
So as Komal said, your safety is always in your own hands, and it relies on an understanding of the place you're going to. That being said, some places are inherently safer than others, like Dubai and Singapore, safe cities. Right? You can leave your phone on a table, walk away, it's still there. There are other places not so safe, right? I don't want to say this and give certain countries a bad reputation, because
but you can. Go ahead. If you've done research, you can.
So safety for women is an entirely different chapter altogether. Safety for guys is different, and what type of trip you're doing is different. So I do a lot of very extreme adventure. Okay. So this involves me always having a GPS spot device. This involves, I'm usually in places which doesn't have cell phone access or internet or even satellite phone access. So this requires very active safety management. That being said, even you can be on land in a place which has everything and still be in trouble. I was abducted in Nigeria like 5 years ago.
You were abducted?
Yeah. Oh wow. Well, that was because I insisted on walking in places I shouldn't be. I'm lucky I got away with my life intact and just a few dollars less. But active safety wise, whenever I'm traveling, whenever I'm on a mountainside, or in addition to being properly trained for what you're doing, I always carry on me emergency contact info, blood group, insurance details. If anything happens, this is who you call to evacuate. This is how, this is my next of kin, and that's something I carry with me. And I always insist, if I'm traveling with anyone, or if I'm taking someone to teach them something, they have to carry this with them, because if you don't have it, you become a liability for the person you're with.
So your top places that you've been to for sporting enthusiasts, anyone who's maybe listening and watching?
So that depends on the type of sport as well. So right from diving to climbing to hiking to paragliding, I've got a whole different...
So you're into everything?
So what interests me is extreme sport and extreme destinations. So it has to be really remote and hard to get to. So in terms of extreme destinations, I will say my top three. One would be Greenland for sure. Apart from that, something more terrestrial, I could say two very, very memorable yet weird places I've been to were North Korea and Turkmenistan. These are the two most closed countries on earth where no one's allowed to get in or out.
Yeah.
So
you got into North Korea.
Yeah.
How was that?
Well, I took a train from China. It was like a 7 or 8 hour journey from the border town into Pyongyang. And it was a very interesting experience because everything we see and hear about North Korea is from Western media.
Correct.
And Western media has its own story to tell. Now, my story is that they're normal people, they're nice people, they're just living their normal life and they want to be left alone. It's not a country full of demons. It's a country full of people going to work just like you and me, doing our thing, going to supermarket, buying stuff, meeting your family, spending time with friends, playing football or whatever game you like, going home or go to the pub. Or it's just a normal place with normal people.
देखें, आप बस ऑनलाइन जाएं, वेबसाइट का नाम लिखें, ब्रांड के सारे प्रोडक्ट्स आ जाएंगे एंड देन आप अपना फेवरेट प्रोडक्ट क्लिक करें, ऐड टू कार्ट, प्रोसीड टू चेकआउट, अपनी सारी डिटेल्स फिल करें एंड डन।
सीखने की कोई उम्र नहीं होती। महमूद 500 Rise, bringing families together since 1979.
And what was the biggest difference for you between traveling with family and traveling on your own? What did you find?
I have not traveled much with my family. I'm a single mother. My children are like big. They're
really?
28 and 25. They want me to travel alone and see people and settle down. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like this year, they keep telling me, pushing me. They set up a page for me to share my travel and cooking experiences. So, but work travel, when I travel alone, I had a lot of quality time. Once I set up the event, I got some time. I took a cab and I explored all the places. So it was like a lot of fun.
Okay. And what was for example, what was your tip for traveling as a woman? Is there a difference, you think, between men traveling?
I don't think so. I think precautions, you have to be aware of the rules of the country. That's
correct.
Must. And then you just have to be safe. There's nothing much really.
Okay.
I had an incident of missed luggage, but that turned out not to be a hassle.
Okay.
Because it was in Africa and I was excited to wear one of those African dresses. But I went out and I got better clothes than my conference clothes. Oh. So I went alone actually to buy. That was in Cameroon.
Okay.
So it was fun.
What are the top things you look for in a new country? Is it the food, the fashion, or the scenic locations? What attracts you more when you get into a new city?
I think I pick, I don't mix and match because some places are good for something and others are for others. So I pick places which are, for example, the last event was with Jordan. Right. There's not so much of activity, life happening and not much time to spend in the city, but there's more time that you would spend off the city limits. I mean, we traveled into the desert, Petra, Dead Sea, and we've done a lot of things out of the city. Mm-hmm. So when we're planning the Jordan, we basically planned everything to do out. Okay. We went to Thailand, we will spend more in the city, but at the same time mixed and matched with some temples and some cultural stuff, some experiences, and get the flavor of the culture. Mm-hmm. So it's a mix and match that we do, and most of the time. I kind of not research, but I just get into those the details of the downtown. That's what I like to do about, rather than just just going and seeing the 10 top places, sightseeing places. Mm-hmm. I want to go and do stuff which is like normal. For example, get into a downtown market, go and experience a small restaurant which is like authentic food or something, or a place which is like not a tourist attraction.
But a local attraction.
Yeah, local attraction. So I would probably go into that more.
And when we spoke offline, you'd mentioned how there was a local tour guide that really helped out. So do you suggest that for people traveling alone?
Yes, because most of the times my travel plans are all fully prepped up. When I say prepped up is that, I mean,
it's very scheduled.
Yeah, not very scheduled. I plan half my tour and I leave half of my tour open so that I can explore. So if I'm doing a day tour for half of my day, or which is like planned and scheduled, the rest of the half I just leave it open so that I can just go and kind of spontaneously explore when I'm on there in the country. And other thing is that, which my wife hates, is that I basically go and get into the streets through Google Earth. So when I'm going to a country, I basically go into the city and I see which places, how far it is from each other, how you plan it, and to the fact that if I'm booking a hotel, I exactly know which street leads to where. So nobody can fool me. For example, if a taxi or a auto guy is charging me more, I can actually tell him that it is actually not that. It is much lesser, and this is the only the fare, that exact fare that I would pay. So he can't fool thinking that, I mean, and I know the fares. I basically kind of find out the fares online from place to place so that nobody can fool me.
Tell us about your best moment in traveling, something that would inspire other people to travel.
I think when I went to Rwanda, I found that it's like a no plastic zone. And it's like the food, it was so different. Even the fruits, and they had this a drink, like something called detoxifies or something. So it's made of ginger, and it was so different. I mean, especially the food part and the place, it was full of green, and it's not like the picture what you get of Africa when you actually visit it.
I know,
it's amazing. It's amazing.
How long have you been traveling solo?
Traveling solo?
Yeah.
Solo probably since about 25 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not all the time, of course,
Yeah.
but here and there, yeah.
And what started the inspiration for you about travel?
Travel, I traveled a lot with my parents as a child. And one trip, we went to South Africa. That was the first really, really big trip away from Europe. And it was the most amazing trip, and it hooked me, and since then I'm a travel addict.
And which place was that, if you don't mind telling us?
We went to Johannesburg, 2 national parks, Kruger National Park, Sabi Park. Then we went with a blue train down to Cape Town and the garden route to Durban.
Oh, wow.
And I was riding on an ostrich, for example, which was very funny. It was just amazing. It was completely different from all the trips we had done before. It was far away from Europe, different life, a little bit of danger, and captivated me.
So one of the things that you advise people who are considering solo traveling, opposed to group traveling, what are the things that you would advise them to keep in mind?
Solo travel has a bit of a safety issue, or a perceived safety issue, where when you're traveling alone, you're not as safe as in a group. You're not seen by others as a unit.
Right.
And so traveling alone, you should go to places that are safer. Don't go to the typically unsafe places. Go to a city. Go to some people like to prefer the beach. I personally prefer to go to a city when I travel alone. Sitting alone at the beach for me has nothing that I like, but that's a
personal preference.
Okay. I know people that prefer to go to the beach, and you need to go to places that are safer, specifically as a woman, and that's the most important one for solo travel.
Yeah, another thing that we were discussing offline was about the budgeting aspect. For solo traveling, how does the budgeting work compared to group travels?
It's by nature more expensive because you cannot share the hotel cost. And the hotel cost sometimes can be really, really high. It depends what kind of hotel you're booking.
Right.
So if you book a 4 or 5-star hotel, it can really become very expensive alone. Whereas if you book a 2 or 3-star hotel, then it doesn't really make so much of a difference. But it is still a cost that you cannot share.
Now, if a woman is traveling alone, what are the kind of advices that you would give as a consultant and an agent to them?
It depends if they are seasoned solo travelers.
Let's say they're new. Let's say beginners.
Beginners, I would say start very, very slowly.
Okay.
Because it's daunting to go on a trip alone. So my suggestion is don't go on a 2-week trip through Mongolia alone to start with.
Okay.
Start very small. Say maybe you're a business woman. You travel to New York or to Singapore or wherever. Extend that trip by a night or 2 and see how that goes. You're already familiar with the place because you've driven around by taxi, haven't seen anything really because you're working the whole day, and now you have the chance to actually see the city. You're already familiar, it makes you feel better, you know where the taxis are, what the cost is of a taxi, and you just then see all the places that you want to see. Or you visit a friend.
Yeah, that's a good one usually, if you have someone in the location, a local.
Yes. You visit a friend, stay with them for 3-4 days, and then you do your own thing.
Okay, yeah. I think that would be a good idea.
Have a comfortable place to land in that country and then go from there.
And one other thing you had mentioned offline was about the crime rates. You would always check the crime rates and political situation of countries before traveling.
Yeah, I
right?
do.
But that's a really good tip, and I think everyone should hear it. So let's say, what are your top 3 tips to really traveling alone? So tell us that.
Well, it's always the safety issue. It's what you want to do. And the best thing about solo travel is you get to do what you want, only you. It's your itinerary, and you can change that itinerary with a moment's notice. If you say, I really like this place, you know what, I'm going to drop the other thing I wanted to do, I'm going to stay here for another hour or another day. You can't really do that so easily when you travel with family, specifically not with children. That's really difficult. Or even with a friend, because that friend might not want to stay there for another day or for another hour, or that friend wants to go shopping. So it gives you so much more freedom.
Nisha, that's straight by
Allah. She's like, you take it to Pakistan. I'm like, how did you know I was from Pakistan? She's like, it's very easy to spot you guys.
I didn't say it, and if you heard it, no visuals on camera, you know where it is coming from.
Okay. For the